Welcome to the Teenage Mutant Fight Club podcast. This week we're embarking on a journey. Yeah, a journey into two pretty wild flash fiction stories
Oh, yeah.
of young heroes facing some pretty incredible challenges.
That's right. We've got these two compelling narratives, I guess you could say, that really thrust these young protagonists into some extraordinary circumstances, and they demand courage and quick thinking, far beyond their years, really.
Absolutely.
And what's really kind of fascinating as we embark on this journey is to consider, not just what these young people do, but how they actually manage to overcome, such daunting odds.
Right, right.
It's really remarkable.
Absolutely. So in our first flash fiction story, The Frozen Fortress, we're going to transport you to a harsh, the mythical land of ice, right? Where a Viking village is left super vulnerable to invaders. And you'll hear how these three young siblings, Eric, Freya, and Bjorn, they have to defend their home while their father and all the warriors are away.
Oh,
Our mission on this journey, right,
yeah.
is to really understand how their knowledge of all these crazy Norse tales and this like unforgiving environment, that actually becomes their greatest weapon.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. I like
So
it.
then we're gonna shift gears dramatically, right? As our journey takes us to a very different landscape in our second flash fiction story,
Okay.
Bushfire.
All right.
And here you'll meet Lucy. Lucy's a really resourceful Australian farm girl battling both raging bushfires, right?
Oh, wow.
And these ruthless poachers
Oh, geez.
on her family's land. We aim to uncover how her bushcraft skills and this like unwavering love like transform her into an unlikely guardian against these really overwhelming threats.
Right on.
Okay, so let's begin our first journey into the Frozen Fortress. Picture this. A brutal, icy landscape,
Right.
a Viking village normally secure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's left practically defenseless because a blizzard has struck, just as the fighting men are all away.
Oh, no.
You immediately experience the fear through young Eric's eyes.
Yeah.
He's clutching his dad's axe, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then you see his sister Freya, and her reaction is very different. What strikes you about that initial contrast, and perhaps how it sets the stage for what's to come?
Well, I think what's immediately apparent is Freya's active engagement with their predicament,
Right.
Instead of just succumbing to fear, she's drawing on their cultural inheritance, these Norse stories, and viewing the land itself as a potential ally.
Right.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the power of narrative and belief
Absolutely.
in shaping how we respond to a crisis,
Yeah.
It's not just about like physical bravery, it's about this like mental framework,
Yeah.
that sees possibilities where others might only see threats.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's like she's reaching for a different kind of strength, one rooted in their understanding of the world around them, both real and imagined.
Yeah.
And we see that almost instantly put into action with this unconventional defense that she initiates.
Yeah.
Tripwires made of hardened gut.
What?
It makes you think about ingenuity born out of necessity, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Where does that kind of out-of-the-box thinking come from?
It really speaks to a deep familiarity with their resources and a willingness to repurpose them. Hardened gut would likely have been used for everyday tasks, right? Like fishing. To see Freya envisioning it as like a tactical tool against these invaders highlights a real practical intelligence, a connection to their environment that the raiders, who likely expected like a straightforward fight, wouldn't anticipate at all.
Yeah.
You can almost imagine the surprise of those first invaders.
Total shock.
Totally.
And then there's young Bjorn,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
While Eric is facing down this like hulking raider, right? In a moment of sheer panic, Bjorn's clever use of that fishing spear to dislodge icy fish from the ice house, burying an attacker.
Oh my gosh.
That's not a display of brute strength at all, is it?
No, not at all.
What does that tell you about how even the seemingly weakest can contribute?
It underscores the idea that everyone possesses unique knowledge and abilities
Right.
that can be crucial in these unexpected circumstances.
Yeah.
Bjorn might not have like the physical prowess of a warrior, but his understanding of the ice house and how to manipulate its contents becomes like a decisive factor in this moment.
Totally.
It makes you consider, how often we might overlook the value of specific local knowledge when we're facing these larger challenges.
Yeah. For sure.
It's really something.
Yeah, and amidst all this chaos, you have Eric fighting with this fierce courage described in our sources as like the ferocity of a cornered wolf cub.
Wow.
And then the combined effort with Freya to take down that same hulking raider using a net. It wasn't just individual acts of bravery, but a coordinated effort.
Right.
What does that suggest about the importance of collaboration, even in the face of like terror?
That moment really illustrates the power of complementary skills.
Mm-hmm.
Eric's raw courage, it provides that initial disruption.
Right.
Perhaps buying Freya, the crucial seconds she needs to deploy her improvised weapon.
Right.
It highlights how, even without formal training, a shared sense of purpose and the ability to work together can overcome, a seemingly superior adversary.
Totally.
You see a family unit functioning as a surprisingly effective fighting force.
And it wasn't just the siblings, right?
Right.
The flash fiction story emphasizes how the entire village, even the old and the very young, they contributed to this defense.
Yeah.
The boiling oil from the rooftop?
Oh, yeah.
Brutal but effective tactic, born out of desperation.
For sure.
And then that old hunter's horn.
What about it?
The sound muffled by the blizzard being mistaken by the raiders for reinforcements. That's like brilliant psychological warfare.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't it? What does that tell you about the power of perception in conflict?
It reveals how easily fear and uncertainty can be manipulated.
Right.
The raiders, expecting an easy raid on a defenseless village, right?
Yeah.
They're suddenly confronted with this unexpected resistance and the possibility of a larger force. The hunter's horn, in that context, becomes more potent than an actual army.
Yeah.
It's playing on their assumptions and anxieties. It raises the question of how much of any conflict is fought in the minds of the participants.
Right.
It's really fascinating.
Here's where our journey takes, like a truly fascinating turn.
Okay.
Eric's mournful howl, amplified by the blizzard.
Yeah.
And Freya's cry about Odin's hunters exploiting the raiders' superstition. They're not just defending themselves physically.
Right.
They're tapping into the raiders' beliefs, weaponizing their own mythology against them.
Wow, yeah.
What does that tell you about the deeper levels of conflict and the power of cultural understanding?
This is a pivotal moment, I think.
Yeah.
They recognize that the raiders likely share a similar cultural framework. A belief in omens and the power of the gods.
Right.
And by invoking these elements, they create an atmosphere of supernatural dread,
Oh, yeah?
that undermines the invaders' resolve far more effectively than any physical attack could, really.
Right.
It makes you wonder how often in history belief and perception have actually shaped the outcomes of battles,
Oh, yeah.
And Bjorn's accurate spear throws, adding to that illusion of these approaching warriors.
Oh,
It's just masterful blend of practical skill and psychological manipulation,
It's like they're playing on so many levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
It all culminates in the invaders' retreat.
Oh.
And the sheer exhaustion, right, that overcomes these young defenders.
Right.
But even in that moment, as Freya drapes the wolf pelt on Eric, there's this powerful sense that something significant has shifted, that a legend is being forged.
I see that.
As you reflect on this part of our journey, what key insight about resilience and unexpected strength emerges for you?
The central insight, I think, is that true strength isn't always about physical might.
Yeah.
And in the Frozen Fortress, we see how resourcefulness, knowledge of the environment, cultural understanding, and the ability to act decisively as a team can actually overcome a seemingly more powerful foe.
Totally.
These young defenders, they turned their perceived vulnerabilities into advantages by thinking creatively and leveraging everything at their disposal.
Right.
The wolf pelt symbolizes Eric's newfound courage and the birth of a story that will likely be told for generations,
Yeah.
It makes you think about the untapped potential within individuals when they're faced with adversity.
It really does.
It's really powerful.
All right, so let's now shift our journey completely and head to the fiery landscape of bushfire. We move from the frozen north to the Australian outback, and here the threat is twofold. The destructive force of raging wildfires, right?
Oh, wow.
And the predatory actions of these ruthless poachers.
Geez, that's a lot.
You're introduced to Lucy, a young farm girl who has made a promise to a firefighter to protect this lost koala, Joey. right from the start, the flash fiction story paints this oppressive atmosphere, right?
Yeah.
The air tasting wrong, the smudge on the horizon, not a sign of help, but of imminent danger.
Oh, no.
What does that kind of sensory detail contribute to your understanding of Lucy's situation?
Well, I think that vivid sensory description immediately immerses you in Lucy's reality.
Yeah.
Wrong cased in the air.
Right.
The ominous smudge on the horizon, it establishes like a palpable sense of foreboding and isolation.
Yeah.
And the orphan Joey isn't just an animal. It represents a vulnerable life that Lucy has consciously taken responsibility for, you know, instantly raising those emotional stakes.
Absolutely.
It makes you consider the power of empathy as a motivator for courage, you know.
Right.
It's really interesting.
And just like the Viking children using their icy environment to their advantage,
Yeah.
Lucy uses her intimate knowledge of the land against the poachers.
Yeah, I like that.
That old water tank becomes both a hiding spot for the Joey and a clever lure,
Oh.
with the molasses acting as bait for these, as the story describes them, city stupid poachers.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
It's a really ingenious use of something ordinary.
Right.
What does that tell you about the difference between those who understand a landscape
Yeah.
and those who seek only to exploit it?
Well, it highlights a fundamental disconnect, I think.
Yeah.
Lucy possesses this deep practical understanding of her environment,
Right.
allowing her to anticipate the poachers' behavior and exploit their ignorance.
Yeah.
The molasses, something readily available on a farm, becomes like a key element in her defense. It underscores the idea that local knowledge and resourcefulness can often trump
Right.
brute force or technological advantage in these specific contexts, you know?
Right.
And her slingshot,
Yeah.
repurposed from a tool to deter pests into a means of defense, showcases her adaptability, you know?
Well,
she's really good at thinking on her feet.
She is.
Mm.
Then you see this incredibly daring moment, right?
Okay.
Lucy uses a discarded cigarette to intentionally start a controlled flare as a crucial distraction.
Oh my God.
That's an enormous risk, wielding fire against fire.
Yeah.
Literally.
That's literally.
What does that kind of calculated risk-taking reveal about her character in that moment?
It's a desperate gamble, you know,
Yeah.
that reveals her willingness to employ these unconventional and potentially dangerous tactics
Right.
when she's driven by a higher purpose,
Yeah.
protecting the Joey.
Right.
It speaks to her quick thinking under extreme pressure and a level of courage that goes beyond simply reacting to danger.
Yeah.
She's actively shaping the situation to her advantage, you know.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder about the ethical considerations that sometimes arise in survival situations, though the story presents this as a necessary act of defense, you know.
Right. Right.
So it's a really interesting dilemma.
But it's when the Joey cries out from the gum tree
Yeah.
that you witness this incredible surge of protective instinct in Lucy,
Yeah.
ignoring her own blistered hands and the immense danger of the.
Wow.
It's not about her being a superhero.
Right.
It's about this profound connection
Yeah.
and the promise that she made.
Mm.
What does that act of selfless bravery highlight for you?
That moment really gets to the heart of the story's emotional power, I think.
Right.
The Joey's vulnerable cry acts as a catalyst,
Right.
overriding Lucy's own fear and pain. It underscores the strength that can be found in compassion and a sense of responsibility for the vulnerable.
Right.
It's a reminder that courage often stems not from a desire for glory,
Yeah.
but from this deep-seated commitment
Well-
to something or someone else. You know,
Yeah.
it's really beautiful.
And then you have this incredibly vivid image of Lucy and the Joey, like silhouetted against the fiery sky, and her powerful protective words to the poachers.
Yeah.
This is my land,
Wow.
and he's mine to protect.
Wow.
Such a potent moment of defiance, you know.
Yeah.
You can also sense the poachers realizing they're facing something far more formidable
Right.
than just a young girl.
Absolutely.
What's the significance of that declaration in the context of the larger story?
It's a crystallization of Lucy's transformation, I think. She's no longer just a scared child.
Right.
She has become this fierce guardian of of her home
Yeah.
and the innocent creature in her care.
Yeah.
Her words, while simple, they carry immense weight,
Right.
communicating an unwavering spirit and a deep connection to the land
Yeah.
that intimidates the poachers more effectively than any physical threat could.
Right.
They recognize her resolve
Mhm.
and the futility of their greed
Right.
in the face of her fierce protectiveness.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's really remarkable.
And then there's that almost miraculous arrival of the firefighting choppers,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
which inadvertently causes the poachers to retreat.
Yeah.
It might seem like a stroke of luck, but in a way it also feels earned,
Yeah.
by Lucy's
I
bravery.
agree.
And the flash fiction story's description of her as a sapling toughened by the blaze,
Mhm.
and the Joey as tangible proof of her unyielding gentleness. It's such a powerful metaphor for her resilience.
Yeah.
What lasting impact do you think this experience will have on Lucy?
The arrival of the choppers, it provides a sense of relief, but it doesn't diminish Lucy's agency at all. You know, she has already demonstrated her remarkable strength and determination. The sapling toughened by the blaze imagery beautifully captures her growth.
Right.
And the resilience she has developed in the face of this immense adversity.
Right.
The Joey becomes a symbol of her enduring compassion.
Yeah.
Proving that even amidst destruction, gentleness can prevail.
Right.
It suggests a profound and lasting impact, forging a deeper connection to her land
Yeah.
and a quiet confidence in her own abilities,
Absolutely.
It's really amazing.
The flash fiction story concludes by emphasizing that Lucy is no longer just a girl, but a young woman,
Right.
deeply connected to her land, ready to face, future threats
Yeah.
with that same fierce love and resilience.
Right.
It's a truly powerful resolution to her journey.
It highlights the transformative power of facing and overcoming these significant challenges,
Yeah.
Lucy has confronted both natural disaster and human greed and emerged stronger, more self-assured,
Right.
and with an even deeper bond to her home and its creatures.
Yeah.
She has discovered an inner strength and resolve that will undoubtedly serve her well in the future.
That's awesome.
It's really inspiring.
So as we conclude this week's journey into these two incredible flash fiction stories, The Frozen Fortress and Bushfire, what overarching insights can you draw for us from these tales of young heroes?
I think what stands out is this powerful demonstration of resourcefulness in the face of adversity. In both vastly different settings, these young individuals didn't rely on conventional strength or adult intervention alone.
Right.
They adapted, they innovated, and they leveraged their specific knowledge of Norse mythology and the icy terrain in one case, of bushcraft and the land in the other, to not just survive, but to triumph.
Wow.
It makes you consider the hidden resources we all possess,
Right.
often overlooked until we're truly tested.
Right. Absolutely. It's really interesting.
Exactly. And think about this. In both scenarios, the young protagonists didn't wait for someone else to rescue them.
Yeah.
Eric, Freya, and Bjorn, they took direct action against the invaders.
Right.
Lucy actively fought both the fire and the poachers.
Yeah.
They seized the initiative, thought creatively under immense pressure, and discovered this wellspring of courage within themselves.
Yeah.
What might you, the listener, learn from their example?
This raises an important question for you, As you navigate your own challenges, what frozen fortresses or bushfires might you be facing?
Right.
And what seemingly ordinary resources, your knowledge, your environment, your inner resilience might you be underestimating?
Right.
Perhaps these stories remind us that true strength often lies not in overwhelming power, but in the clever and courageous application of what we already have. That's it, Thank you for joining us on this week's journey into the Frozen Fortress and Bushfire here on the Teenage Mutant Fight Club podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
If these tales of teenage heroes and underdog outcasts have sparked your imagination, be sure to rate and follow the show for more captivating stories next week from the Teenage Mutant Fight Club podcast.